My parents laughed when I told them I worked in tech. "Stop joking around," my dad said. "Go get a help desk job." But tonight, at my brother's engagement dinner, his fiancée suddenly froze. "Wait, you're the CEO our company owes $190 million to?" There I was, pen in hand, poised to sign a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. My entire life, every late night, every struggle, had led to this exact moment. But the truly insane part? In just a few short hours, I was going to sit down to my brother's engagement dinner, fully expecting my own mother to, yet again, suggest I apply for some entry-level secretarial job, all while completely oblivious that the brilliant woman sitting across from me, negotiating my 9-figure exit, was about to become part of our family. It was one of those moments that makes you question everything. David Chin, the CEO, his voice smooth as silk, told me to take my time. Below us, Chicago stretched out, a glittering tapestry of lights, and I could see the very buildings my company, City Sync, now managed. Somewhere down there, my parents were probably having lunch, totally unaware their struggling daughter was about to become one of the youngest self-made female tech entrepreneurs in history. Amanda Parker, Metropolitan's VP of Corporate Development, leaned forward, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming a single beat on her leather portfolio. "Any final questions?" she asked, completely unaware that in exactly 3 hours and 27 minutes, she'd be shaking hands with my brother as his fiancé. Life, I swear, has the most twisted sense of humor. I pressed the pen to paper, signing my name with a steady hand. Sarah Elizabeth Johnson. The room erupted in applause, but my mind was already racing ahead to the conversation I'd both dreaded and anticipated for years. Tonight, my two worlds were finally about to collide, in the most spectacular way imaginable. "Sarah, computers are a hobby, not a career." Those words, they'd haunted me for years. They echoed in my head as I pushed the signed contract aside and my mind drifted back to where it all began, Highland Park, Illinois, 1998. I was 8, absolutely glued to our family's new gateway computer, teaching myself basic HTML while my brother, Michael, practiced violin. Our house wasn't just a home, it was a shrine to achievement. Dad's framed medical degrees, Mom's law school diplomas, Michael's academic trophies, they filled every space. And me? I was coding in my room, a concerning lack of focus as they whispered in the kitchen. Dad, a doctor, believed only established, regulated professions could be trusted. He'd lost a patient once due to a communication error, a preventable tragedy that shaped his rigid views. Technology, to him, was unproven, unreliable. Mom's fierce commitment to conventional achievement came from her own climb in a male-dominated law firm in the 80s. She learned to earn respect through undeniable, traditional success. They loved me genuinely, but through the narrow lens of their own hard-won wisdom. It meant steering me away from anything risky or unconventional. Sarah built a website for her school project. I announced proudly at dinner when I was 15, having spent 3 weeks mastering CSS. "That's nice, honey," Mom replied, with that particular smile that never quite reached her eyes. "But you should be focusing on debate team. Colleges want sustained commitment to activities that build real skills." Dad just nodded, already asking Michael about his advanced chemistry project. The message was crystal clear. Real achievement happened in operating rooms and courtrooms, not at computer screens. My bedroom became my sanctuary. While Michael's walls showcased academic certificates, mine were covered in printouts of code snippets and user interface sketches. I'd stay awake until 2 a.m. learning Python, then stumble through AP biology, not because I cared, but because they assumed I'd follow Michael into medicine. They never once asked what I wanted. The disconnect only deepened. In high school, I developed a program that streamlined our school's scheduling system, cutting administrative time in half. The principal called it remarkable innovation. My parents? A nice extracurricular activity. Our computer science teacher told them I had extraordinary technical intuition, that universities would fight over me. Mom just replied, "Sarah has many interests, but we're focusing on her pre-law requirements for real career opportunities." I wasn't even planning law school, but they'd already mapped out my entire future. The breaking point arrived during my junior year. I'd spent months preparing for the Illinois State Programming Competition, developing an inventory management system businesses were actually asking to license. The finals fell on the same Saturday as Michael's acceptance celebration for Northwestern's pre-med program. "We're so sorry, sweetie," Mom said, not looking sorry at all. "But Michael has worked his entire life for this. You understand, right? Maybe next time." I went alone, the only participant without family in the audience, and I won first place. The judges, all professional software engineers, told me I had natural talent and vision. I came home clutching my trophy to find our house full of relatives, celebrating Michael. My first place finish warranted a distracted, "That's wonderful, dear," from Dad before he returned to toasting my brother. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision that would define the next 15 years. I would succeed on my own terms, without their validation. I would build something so undeniable that they'd have no choice but to see me. I just had no idea how long it would take. College applications became a battleground. They pushed Ivy League pre-law. I applied to state universities with strong computer science programs. When my acceptance to Northwestern's McCormick School of Engineering arrived with a merit scholarship, their reaction was swift. "You're throwing away your potential," Dad said, disappointment thick in his voice. "Your test scores could get you into Yale." Mom's voice rose. "Computer science? That's not a field for someone of your capabilities." What they really meant was, that's not a field worthy of a Johnson. Michael, home from his first year, tried to mediate with his usual well-meaning condescension. "Maybe it's just a phase, Mom. Let her get it out of her system before law school." Get it out of my system? As if my passion was some kind of illness. I left for college that fall carrying their disappointment like a weight, but also with a lightness I'd never felt before. Finally, I could pursue what I loved without constant judgment. Northwestern's campus was liberation. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter squandering her potential on computer games. I was Sarah, the student professors singled out for innovative approaches. I found people who spoke my language. Sophomore year, I met Emma Rodriguez in advanced algorithms. While others struggled, we finished our final project in half the time, adding features the professor hadn't even requested. "You two think differently," Professor Martinez told us. "You see the human element in technical problems. That's rare." We started grabbing coffee, staying until the cafe closed, talking about technology's untapped potential. Emma was brilliant, driven, and like me, from a family that didn't quite understand her path, though her parents' skepticism was rooted in concern, not dismissal. "The real estate industry is completely broken," Emma declared one night, her laptop open to an article about inefficient building management. "My dad manages commercial properties in Phoenix. Half his day is wasted on stuff that should be automated." And something just clicked for me. What if we could change that? I asked. Over the next week, we sketched ideas on napkins, envisioning a platform that would revolutionize building management. By semester's end, we had the skeleton of what would become City Sync. Summer break meant returning to Highland Park, where nothing had changed except my growing conviction that I was meant for something bigger than my family could imagine. "So, what exactly do you do for work?" my Uncle Jim asked at Thanksgiving dinner in 2018. I was 25. City Sync had just closed our series of funding. Our platform managed 12 commercial buildings in Chicago. We were ones to watch in PropTech Weekly. "I work in property technology," I said carefully. "Database management, mostly." Not a lie, just dramatically incomplete. "Oh, like IT support?" Aunt Linda chimed in. "That's good study work. Are there opportunities for advancement?" Across the table, Michael, now a second-year resident, received a 15-minute ovation for assisting in his first major surgery. I sat there, knowing our algorithms had prevented 3 security breaches and optimized energy usage for 50,000 office workers that month, and said nothing. The isolation was crushing, but it was also protective. I'd learned to guard my professional life from people who'd never valued it, even as that life grew increasingly remarkable. Emma and I had moved to Chicago after graduation, subletting a cramped studio, living on ramen and coffee, coding until our eyes burned. Our first office was a corner table at a 24-hour diner. The early rejections from VCs were brutal. PropTech is too niche. Building management isn't sexy. Two college kids can't disrupt legacy real estate. You realize we're completely insane, right? Emma asked me one night at 3 a.m. Probably, I agreed. But we are insane with purpose. CitySync's core innovation was elegantly simple, a SaaS platform using biometric authentication to integrate building access, space management, and user analytics. Employees could enter buildings, book rooms, order food with a simple fingerprint. Building managers could track utilization, optimize energy, enhance security. What made it revolutionary was the integration. We were creating comprehensive ecosystems that transformed legacy buildings into intelligent environments. We were disrupting an industry stuck in the 90s. Our first breakthrough came when Professor Martinez connected us with Janet Chin, a frustrated property manager. "Show me what you've got," Janet said, skepticism clear. We implemented a pilot program over a weekend. By Monday morning, her maintenance requests dropped 60%. Her security team tracked every access point. Tenants raved. "How soon can we expand this?" Janet asked. That first $50,000 contract felt like winning the lottery. We celebrated with deep dish pizza and cheap champagne, dreaming of the empire we'd build. The early years were relentless. 18-hour days, constant pivots, the emotional roller coaster of startup life. We hired brilliant people: Tyler, Marcus, Lisa. Meanwhile, my family relationships became increasingly superficial. Sunday phone calls were exercises in creative vagueness. "How's work?" Mom would ask. "Good, busy, learning a lot." "Are you making decent money?" "Enough to get by." These weren't technically lies, but they weren't the truth either. By my 28th birthday, CitySync generated $2 million in annual revenue, managing buildings for 30,000 workers daily. I was paying myself a modest salary, reinvesting everything. Getting by was accurate, even as my equity grew increasingly valuable. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting. Professionally, I was a rising star. At family gatherings, I was the daughter who hadn't quite found her footing. "Sarah's friend, Mark, is doing really well," Mom mentioned once. "He just made partner at his law firm." I could arrange an introduction. The subtext was clear: maybe I could marry success if I couldn't achieve it myself. "Thanks, but I'm focused on work," I'd say. "Of course, but you can't work forever without thinking about your future." "You're 27, honey." Michael's already talking about engagement rings. My future. If only she knew I was literally building it, one line of code at a time. The distance between my two worlds grew wider. We landed our first enterprise client, a Fortune 500 company. Then another. Tech publications paid attention, but I kept a low profile, interviews with my camera off, only the back of my head in photos. Sarah J., co-founder, or CitySync's reclusive CEO. The mystery enhanced our reputation, the brilliant but camera-shy woman revolutionizing PropTech. "Don't you want more recognition?" Emma asked. "I do," I admitted. "Just not yet. And not from strangers." What I couldn't articulate was my complicated relationship with validation. I wanted my family to see me, truly see me, but I wasn't sure I could handle them taking credit, or worse, minimizing it, once it became undeniable. Besides, there was something powerful about building an empire in silence. The breakthrough moment came in early 2021. We'd been quietly revolutionizing building management for 3 years when the pandemic hit. Suddenly, every property owner needed real-time occupancy data, contactless access, flexible space management. CitySync wasn't just useful, it was essential. Our revenue tripled in 6 months. We hired aggressively, moved into a beautiful office in the Loop. I could afford a gorgeous apartment in Lincoln Park, but I kept it minimal and never gave my family the address. A place downtown with roommates, I'd vaguely describe it. Technically true, since Emma lived 2 floors down. Our Series B funding closed at a $45 million valuation. We had the capital, the team, the market recognition. We need to talk about scaling, Emma said one morning, spreading partnership proposals across our conference table. Microsoft and Amazon were interested. We can't handle this growth organically. She was right. Success was accelerating beyond our internal capacity. We needed expertise, infrastructure. What are you thinking? I asked, though I knew. Strategic acquisition, she replied. Find the right partner who can scale our technology without destroying our culture. The idea terrified and exhilarated me. Acquisition meant validation on a scale I'd only dreamed of. It also meant my secret would become public record. Press releases, interviews, public valuations. Was I ready for my two worlds to collide? The first acquisition inquiry came late 2021. Their offer was flattering but premature, $25 million. Emma and I spent 7 minutes considering it before politely declining. They don't understand what we've built, Emma said as we walked along the lakefront. They see a profitable startup. They don't see a platform that could reshape how humans interact with urban environments. She was right. CitySync had evolved beyond building management. We weren't just managing properties, we were creating smart urban ecosystems. The validation felt incredible, but the isolation was becoming unbearable. Success without recognition from the people you love most is a special kind of loneliness. My relationship with my parents had calcified into polite distance, weekly phone calls where I shared nothing meaningful, and they offered advice I didn't need about a life they didn't understand. Honey, your cousin Jessica just got promoted, Mom would say. She's doing really well for herself. Maybe you two should grab coffee. I almost laughed. Jessica was successful, but CitySync's quarterly revenue now exceeded her annual salary. Still, I'd say, that sounds nice, Mom. I'll reach out. The lies were becoming harder to maintain. But explaining the truth? That felt impossible. How do you tell people who've spent decades viewing you as an underachiever that you've built a company worth tens of millions? Michael's relationship with me had grown increasingly patronizing. At family dinners, he'd offer career advice with the gentle condescension of someone speaking to a wayward child. You know, Sarah, there are some really good corporate training programs out there. My hospital works with a few companies that might be hiring. It could be a way to get your foot in the door somewhere with real growth potential. Real growth potential. I was sitting there, having grown a company from $0 to $8 million in annual revenue, and my brother was suggesting entry-level corporate training. I appreciate the thought, I'd say, but I'm learning a lot. Of course, but you can't stay in support roles forever. You're smart, Sarah. You just need to find the right opportunity to showcase that. Support roles. If only he knew. I was the CEO, making strategic decisions that affected thousands of employees across dozens of cities. The cognitive dissonance reached its breaking point in early 2022. We just closed a major partnership with Wilson Properties, over 200 buildings, 100,000 workers daily. The press release called it a game-changing partnership. Publications described us as the company to watch. That same week, Mom called with exciting news. Sarah, your father's golf partner mentioned his company might be hiring for their IT help desk. It's entry-level, but it's a foot in the door at a stable company. Should I put in a good word? I sat there in my corner office overlooking Lake Michigan, with signed contracts worth millions on my desk, listening to my mother offer to help me get a help desk job. That's very thoughtful, Mom, I said, my voice carefully neutral. But I'm really happy. Sweetheart, happiness is one thing, but you need to think about your future. Security, benefits, a real career path. A real career path. I was building the career path for an entire industry, but to her, it wasn't real because she couldn't see it. That night, I called my therapist, Dr. Williams, for an emergency session. I feel like I'm living a double life, I told her. And I'm starting to lose track of which version is real. What would make it feel real to you? She asked. Having the people I love see me for who I actually am. And what's stopping you from showing them? I considered it. Fear that they'll minimize it. Fear they'll take credit. Fear that even with proof, they still won't really see me. Dr. Williams paused. And fear that if they finally see you and still don't approve, you'll have nowhere left to hide. She'd hit the core of it. As long as they didn't know, I could tell myself their lack of approval stemmed from ignorance. If they knew everything and still diminished me, what would that say about our relationship? The answer came sooner than I expected. In March 2022, Metropolitan Development Group reached out. They wanted to revolutionize their entire approach to property management. They're talking about integration, not just acquisition, Emma said after our preliminary meeting. They want to build their next-generation platform around our technology. The numbers were staggering, $150 to $200 million. It wasn't just life-changing money, it was family-silencing money. The kind of success impossible to minimize or explain away. Are you ready for this? Emma asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I think it's time to find out. The due diligence began. Lawyers, accountants, leadership teams. Through it all, I maintained my low profile. Video calls with my camera off. Emma handled most face-to-face meetings. When they asked for promo materials, we provided Emma's photo and background, describing me simply as Sarah J., co-founder and CEO. Emma became the public face. I remained the phantom architect. Every publication featured her photo alongside a shadowy silhouette or the back of my head. The mystery enhanced our reputation. They're going to want to meet you in person eventually, Emma warned. You can't stay anonymous through a $190 million acquisition. She was right, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. The final offer arrived on a Tuesday morning in June, $190 million, with earnouts pushing it to $225 million. Emma and I would remain post-acquisition, leading the integration. This is it, Emma said, reading the term sheet. This is what we've been building toward. I stared at the numbers, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the money. I was thinking about the conversation I'd have to have with my parents, explaining that their struggling daughter had just engineered one of the largest prop-tech exits in Chicago history. There's something else, Emma said carefully. Amanda Parker, their VP of Corporate Development, mentioned she's engaged to a doctor at Northwestern Memorial. Someone named Michael Johnson. My blood ran cold. Michael Johnson? Yeah. She seemed excited about some family dinner next week. Small world, right? Small world indeed. In 7 days, I'd be sitting at my brother's engagement dinner, meeting his fiancée, Amanda Parker. The same Amanda Parker who'd spent 3 months conducting due diligence on my company, negotiating the terms of my $190 million exit. The universe, it seemed, had decided it was time for my two worlds to collide, whether I was ready or not. All that remained was signing the papers and facing the consequences. The signature room on the 95th floor of the John Hancock building. Michael's choice for his engagement dinner. And I had to admit, it was perfect. Floor-to-ceiling windows, panoramic views of Chicago, city lights twinkling like scattered diamonds. It was the kind of place that demanded celebration, success stories, impressive achievements. Too bad they had no idea what story they were about to hear tonight. I arrived exactly on time, not early enough to help, as Mom had suggested, nor late enough to make an entrance. Just punctual and composed, like the businesswoman I'd secretly become. The hostess led me to our private dining room. My family was already gathered, an elegantly set table for 12. Crystal glasses caught the ambient light, casting prismatic patterns. The Chicago River snaked below, its dark surface reflecting the urban skyline I'd helped make smarter. Sarah. Michael spotted me first, crossing the room with the easy confidence of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world. So glad you could make it. He embraced me warmly, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt about the revelation I was about to unleash. Michael wasn't a bad person. He was just someone who'd never been forced to see beyond his own experience. Come meet Amanda, he said, guiding me toward the windows where a tall, elegant woman stood silhouetted. Even from behind, I recognized her. Amanda Parker, VP of Corporate Development. She turned as we approached, and I watched recognition flicker across her features. Confusion at first, then slowly, dawning realization. Amanda, this is my sister. Sarah, Michael said with barely concealed pride. Sarah, meet Amanda Parker, my brilliant fiancée. It's lovely to finally meet you, Amanda said, her professional composure intact despite the obvious shock in her eyes. Michael talks about you constantly. I wonder what exactly he says, I thought, shaking her perfectly manicured hand. Congratulations on your engagement, I said sincerely. I'm happy for you both. Mom appeared at my elbow, her critical gaze scanning my outfit, a simple but elegant black dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, though she'd never know that. Sarah, I see you found something appropriate to wear. That's nice. The pause spoke volumes. We've seated you next to Cousin Margaret. You always got along with her. Translation: I was positioned far from the important guests, where my lack of impressive achievements wouldn't detract from the evening's celebratory mood. Dinner began with champagne toasts that felt like elaborate theater. Dad spoke first, his voice thick with emotion. To my son, Michael, who has made us proud every single day of his life. And to Amanda, a brilliant, accomplished woman worthy of him. We couldn't ask for a better addition to our family. Mom's toast followed, a carefully crafted speech highlighting Michael's achievements from his first science fair victory to his recent promotion to chief resident. She concluded, and now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence. As glasses clinked, I noticed Amanda watching me with growing intensity, as if trying to reconcile the underachieving sister she'd heard about with something she couldn't quite place. The first course arrived, seared scallops with truffle oil, and conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. I fielded the usual questions about my job situation with practiced deflection. I work in property technology, I told Cousin Margaret when she asked. Data management and system integration. Oh, that sounds technical, she replied, with the same tone one might use to discuss a minor illness. Is there room for advancement in that field? Before I could answer, Uncle Jim leaned across the table. Sarah, Michael mentioned you might have a lead on a position at Apple. That would be quite a step up. A step up? I took a careful sip of wine, acutely aware of Amanda's eyes on me. In my purse was a signed contract, making me one of the youngest female entrepreneurs to exit a prop tech company for 9 figures. But to my family, a hypothetical entry-level position at Apple represented success. I'm actually quite satisfied with my current work, I said simply. Dad overheard and joined the conversation with his usual paternal concern. Sarah, there's no shame in accepting help to get your foot in the door somewhere respectable. We all want to see you succeed, somewhere respectable. The irony was almost painful. From across the table, Amanda's stare intensified. Recognition was dawning in her eyes like a sunrise breaking over Lake Michigan. Sarah, she said during a lull in conversation, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of clinking glasses and polite laughter. Forgive me, but is your last name Johnson? The table quieted. Michael looked completely confused. Of course it is. She's my sister. Amanda set down her fork with deliberate precision. You're Sarah Johnson, from City Sink. And there it was. The moment I'd both dreaded and anticipated for years. Yes, I said simply, meeting her gaze steadily. Wait, Amanda continued, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. You're the Sarah Johnson. The founder and CEO of City Sink Technologies, the company my firm just acquired for $190 million. Michael looked completely bewildered. Amanda, I think you're confusing my sister with someone else. Sarah works in tech support or something. Amanda turned to stare at him in disbelief. Michael, I've been negotiating this acquisition for 3 months. Your sister just became one of the most successful prop-tech entrepreneurs in the country. She looked back at me, full realization dawning. I can't believe I didn't connect it. You always talked about your sister Sarah, but Johnson is such a common name, and the ghost genius was this mysterious figure. We barely saw you in person during negotiations. Always video calls with Emma as the primary contact. The ghost genius? Dad repeated weakly. That's what the industry calls her, Amanda explained, her voice filled with professional admiration. The brilliant CEO who revolutionized building management while maintaining complete privacy. Now I understand why. The silence that followed was absolute. Dad froze with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Mom's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. Michael sat there, processing the fact that every piece of career advice he'd ever given me had been directed at the CEO of a 9-figure company. Wait, Michael stammered, so all those times I offered you advice about getting a real job. I was talking to the CEO of a $190 million company. His voice trailed off as the full impact hit him. Oh my God, is this true? Dad finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I said, maintaining eye contact. Emma Rodriguez and I founded CitySync 6 years ago. We currently employ 127 people across 8 cities and manage smart building systems for over 400 commercial properties. But why wouldn't you tell us? Mom's bewilderment seemed genuine, as if she couldn't fathom why someone would hide such success. Before I could answer, Amanda continued, her professional excitement overriding the awkward family dynamics. Your platform revolutionized building management efficiency by 73% across our test portfolio. The biometric integration capabilities are light years ahead of anything else in the market. You've essentially created the neural system for smart cities. It's why we were willing to pay such a premium. $190 million. Dad repeated the number like a prayer. Amanda nodded, still processing the connection herself. The acquisition closed this morning. Your sister just engineered one of the largest PropTech exits in Chicago history. But Sarah works in IT support, Michael said weakly, as if saying it aloud might make it true. Your sister, Amanda replied, is the CEO who just revolutionized how 200,000 office workers interact with their buildings daily. Her biometric integration platform is being studied by universities as the future of urban technology. The rest of the dinner passed in a surreal blur of shocked questions and awkward revelations. Relatives who'd pitted me an hour before suddenly wanted investment advice. Mom mentioned 3 times that she'd always known I had a special talent with computers. Dad claimed he'd been telling golf partners about his daughter, the tech entrepreneur, for years. Through it all, I maintained my composure, answering politely, but without the desperate hunger for approval that had defined so much of my earlier life. The validation I'd once craved now felt hollow against the backdrop of their sudden, opportunistic pride. Why didn't you tell us? Michael asked as the evening wound down, his voice carrying a mixture of hurt and genuine bewilderment. The confident older brother who'd always had easy answers was gone, replaced by someone grappling with a reality that challenged everything he thought he knew about our family dynamics. Because I needed to know I could succeed without your approval, I said gently. And I needed to build something so undeniable that it couldn't be minimized or explained away. We would never minimize your achievements. Mom protested, though her voice lacked conviction. Mom, I said carefully. 3 weeks ago, you offered to help me get an entry-level help desk position. Last Christmas, you suggested I apply to secretarial school. For 6 years, every conversation we had included subtle suggestions that I get a real job. Michael winced visibly. All those times I offered you career advice about corporate training programs and getting your foot in the door somewhere. I was talking to someone who was already running a company worth more than I'll make in my entire medical career. You weren't trying to be condescending, I said. You were trying to help, based on the information you had. I'm the one who kept you in the dark. But why didn't you trust us to support you? Dad asked, and for the first time all evening, he sounded genuinely hurt, rather than defensive. I trusted your love, I confessed. But I didn't trust your respect. I needed to know I could succeed without your approval before I could risk asking for it. Amanda, who'd been watching this family drama unfold with the fascination of an anthropologist, finally spoke up. For what it's worth, your reputation in the industry is extraordinary. People call you the ghost genius. The brilliant CEO who revolutionized PropTech while maintaining total privacy. Now I understand why. As we said our goodbyes, Mom clutched my arm with a grip that bordered on desperate. We need to talk properly, Sarah. Soon. About everything. I nodded, knowing the conversation was inevitable, but no longer fearing it. We will, Mom. Walking to my car through the Chicago night, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The secret that had defined my adult life was finally out in the open. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms, secure in the knowledge of what I'd built and who I'd become. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "How did it go? Are you okay?" I typed back, "It went exactly like we thought it would. And yes, I'm more than okay. I'm finally free." The first text from my parents arrived before I even reached my apartment. "We need to talk tomorrow. The Drake Hotel at 11 a.m. Mom." By morning, my phone was flooded. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered they'd always supported my computer interests. Cousins asked about investment opportunities. Uncle Jim sent 3 messages, each more effusive than the last, about my amazing success. Michael's message was different. "I'm confused and I feel like an idiot. Can we talk?" I replied only to my parents, agreeing to brunch, and to Michael. "Yes, we definitely need to talk." Some conversations, I'd learned, were worth waiting years to have. The view from my new office at Metropolitan Development Group never got old. 42 floors above the Chicago River, I could see the entire grid of smart buildings now running on CitySync's integrated platform. What had started as a dream sketched on napkins had become the backbone of urban intelligence across 3 time zones. "The Singapore expansion is ahead of schedule," Emma said, settling into the chair across from my desk. She was now Chief Technology Officer for Metropolitan's Smart Cities Division. "They want our system across 12 buildings in their financial district by Q2. And the London partnership signed this morning, 17 properties in Canary Wharf, full biometric integration. The mayor's office is even interested in citywide implementation." I smiled, spinning my chair to face the windows. CitySync wasn't just a Chicago success story anymore. We were reshaping how humans interacted with urban environments on a global scale. Buildings across 4 continents now used our technology, creating seamless, intelligent experiences for over 800,000 people daily. The adjustment to life post-acquisition hadn't been seamless, but it had been rewarding. Working within Metropolitan's structure meant access to resources we'd only dreamed of as a startup, but it also meant navigating corporate politics and maintaining our innovative culture within a larger organization. "David wants to know if you're ready for the Tokyo presentation next month," Emma continued. "The Japanese partners are specifically requesting the ghost genius herself." I laughed. That nickname had followed me into my new role, though I'd finally started doing public interviews and conference presentations. The mystery was part of my brand now, but I was no longer hiding. "Tell David I'll be there," I said. It's time I met our Japanese partners face to face. My relationship with my family had found its own equilibrium over the past 6 months. The initial shock had given way to a more complex process of rebuilding on new terms. It hadn't been smooth. There had been awkward conversations, hurt feelings, and moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, but it had been real. My parents had struggled initially with what my success meant for their worldview. Dad had gone through what I could only describe as an identity crisis, questioning his assumptions about stable career paths and traditional achievement. Mom had oscillated between defensive pride and genuine attempts to understand the technology industry. The breakthrough had come during a family dinner 3 months after the revelation. Michael had invited everyone to his apartment to celebrate his residency match, and for the first time in years, the conversation hadn't centered around achievements and comparisons. "I've been thinking about what you said," Dad had told me over dessert, "about us never really asking what you wanted. I realize I spent so much time trying to protect you from failure that I never learned to recognize your success." It wasn't a complete apology, but it was a start. It was understanding. Mom's transformation had been more gradual. She'd started taking online courses in business technology, reading industry publications, and asking genuine questions about my work. Last week, she'd even sent me an article about prop tech innovations with a note. "This reminded me of what you and Emma built. I'm starting to understand why it matters." Michael's adjustment had been the most dramatic. Discovering his struggling sister was actually a tech executive had forced him to confront his own assumptions about success and failure. The conversations we'd had since that dinner had been more honest than anything we'd shared in years. "I keep thinking about all the times I offered you career advice," he said during one particularly raw conversation. "How condescending I must have sounded." "You weren't trying to be condescending," I'd replied. "You were trying to help, based on the information you had. I'm the one who kept you in the dark." But why did you not trust us? That question had taken me weeks to answer honestly. I trusted your love, but I didn't trust your respect. I needed to know I could succeed without your approval before I could risk asking for it. The relationship that had surprised me most was with Amanda. What could have been an awkward connection had evolved into genuine friendship. Her position as both family member and professional colleague gave her unique insight into my dual nature, and she'd become something of a translator between my two worlds. Your family is learning, she told me over coffee last week. They're having to expand their definition of what success looks like. That's not easy for people who've built their identities around traditional achievement. She was right. My parents weren't malicious people. They were people who'd found security and meaning in conventional paths and had wanted to share that security with their children. Learning to see beyond those boundaries required genuine effort and humility. The most unexpected development had been my emergence as a mentor in the tech community. Once a month, I hosted workshops for young women in STEM fields, sharing not just technical knowledge, but the emotional resilience needed to pursue unconventional paths. My parents think programming is just a hobby. A 15-year-old named Maya had told me during our last session, echoing my own teenage experience. They want me to focus on pre-med courses. What do you want to build? I asked, the same question I wish someone had asked me at her age. Apps that help people with disabilities navigate public spaces more easily, she replied without hesitation. My little brother has autism, and I see how hard it is for him to feel comfortable in crowded places. Then build them, I said, offering her the same encouragement I'd had to give myself. Find people who believe in your vision, even if they're not your family, and keep the door open for your parents to understand later. These sessions reminded me why I'd fought so hard to build City Sync in the first place. Technology wasn't about the money or the recognition. It was about creating solutions that made people's lives better. Every young woman who left our workshops feeling empowered to pursue her technical dreams was validation beyond any acquisition deal. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, dinner with family, 7 p.m. These monthly gatherings had become a treasured tradition, something I would have found unimaginable a year ago. Heading out early? Emma asked, noticing me packing my laptop. Family dinner. Michael's cooking, which means Amanda's probably bringing backup takeout. How are things with them now? She asked. I considered the question. Different. Better. Real, for the first time in years. That evening, I drove to Michael and Amanda's apartment in Lincoln Park, a beautiful space they'd chosen together that reflected both their personalities. The walls featured medical awards alongside technology industry recognition, a visual representation of how our family had learned to expand its definition of achievement. Sarah. Michael opened the door, flower in his hair and an apron reading, "Trust me, I'm a doctor." I only set off the smoke alarm once tonight, he said. Progress, I laughed, embracing him. Amanda appeared from the kitchen, carrying a bottle of wine and looking amused. I may have ordered pizza as backup. Your brother's ambitious, but not always realistic about his culinary skills. Smart woman, I said. That's why you're perfect for him. Mom and Dad arrived shortly after, both looking more relaxed than they had in months. Dad had been reading business magazines to better understand my industry, while Mom had started following tech news and occasionally sent me articles she found interesting. How was the board meeting today? Dad asked as we settled around their dining table. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have known I attended board meetings. Now he asked specific questions about quarterly projections and market expansion. Productive. We approved the funding for our mental health initiative. Smart building systems that can detect stress patterns and adjust environmental factors to improve well-being. That sounds like it could help a lot of people, Mom said, and I could tell she genuinely meant it. Over dinner, Michael's surprisingly edible chicken parmesan, supplemented by Amanda's backup pizza, the conversation flowed naturally between my work, Michael's medical cases, and family news. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to downplay my achievements or navigate around uncomfortable topics. I have an announcement, I said as we finished dessert. Forbes wants to feature me on the cover of their next issue. "The Ghost Genius Steps into the Light" is the proposed headline. That's incredible. Amanda said immediately, raising her wine glass. A cover story. Our daughter on the cover of Forbes, Mom said wonderingly. Robert, do you realize what this means? It means we raised an extraordinary woman, Dad replied, looking directly at me. It just took us too long to recognize it. The moment could have felt hollow, validation coming only after undeniable proof of success. But it didn't. It felt like healing, like the beginning of relationships built on who we actually were, rather than who we pretended to be. There's something else, I continued. I'm starting a foundation, Hidden Potential. It'll provide mentorship and funding for young women pursuing unconventional paths in STEM fields. Like what you wish you'd had? Michael asked, understanding immediately. Exactly. Nobody should have to build their dreams in complete silence. Count us in, Amanda said immediately. Whatever you need, board positions, funding, connections. We'd like to help, too, Mom added. I may not understand all the technical aspects, but I understand the importance of supporting young women's ambitions. As the evening wound down, I found myself standing on their balcony with Michael, looking out over the city lights. So many of those buildings now used CitySync technology, creating seamless experiences for thousands of people every day. I owe you an apology, he said quietly. A real one. For years of treating you like someone who needed fixing instead of someone who was building something incredible. You don't owe me anything, I replied. We were both trying to navigate a family that had very specific ideas about success. You happened to fit those ideas, and I didn't. But I should have seen you. Really seen you. You see me now, I said. That's what matters. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with life below us. Somewhere in that urban sprawl, a teenager was probably teaching herself to code in her bedroom, dreaming of building something that would change the world. I hoped she had people who believed in her vision. If not, I hoped she'd find them or find her way to one of our hidden potential workshops. You know what's funny? Michael said eventually. What? I spent my whole life trying to make Mom and Dad proud by following their path. You made them proud by creating your own. I smiled. Different kinds of courage, I guess. Yeah, he said, but yours was harder. Maybe it was, but it had also been mine. Completely, authentically mine. And that made all the difference. Later that night, back in my apartment, I stood on my own balcony overlooking Lake Michigan. The water reflected the city lights like scattered diamonds, each one representing someone whose life had been touched by the technology we'd created. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Saw the Forbes announcement on social media. Ready to be famous? I typed back, ready to be seen. Tomorrow, I'd wake up as Sarah Johnson, CEO of Metropolitan Smart Cities Division, Forbes cover story, and founder of Hidden Potential. But tonight, I was simply someone who'd learned that the best validation comes from within, and that sometimes, if you're patient and persistent enough, the people you love most will learn to see you clearly, too. The city stretched out below, full of smart buildings that would make tomorrow a little easier for hundreds of thousands of people. Not bad for a girl who'd once been told that computers were just a hobby. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. And sometimes, if you built something undeniable enough, the world, including your family, will have no choice but to see you for who you really are.